Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. Apologies, we're a little bit delayed with the live stream recording of this if you watch on YouTube, which we will be doing for every Tour de France stage. By the way, if you want to see the action pretty much 5-10 minutes straight after, well, not the action, after you've seen the action, come watch this action straight after the stage. The LRCP YouTube channel is the place to do so. But this is the Dauphiné Stage 6 from Nantua to Cor Vos, 171 Ks. Medium mountain stage with the Col des Aravis, which is a bit of a longer climb overall. It does go up to 1,500 meters from about 700 meters. It's lumpy all day without too much, categorized climbs. Took a long time for the break to form, but the two climbs of note, as I said, the Col des Aravis, 7.5 Ks, 6% before a twisty, beautiful descent down. And then there's a collection of two climbs, the Notre Dame de Bellecombe and then the Cor Vos. The first climb's 3.5 Ks, about 6%, but the first when it actually starts going up is 11.5% for 600 meters, and the same for the next climb, the last one. First 600 is 14%, levels off, kicks up a bit again, and the last 600 is basically flat, 2% gradient. So it's easier than yesterday. It's really not one where Vingegaard should dance away from everybody on what are 3-minute efforts, 2.5-minute efforts on the steep parts, but it would be. There's a big fight for the break, Benji, which we didn't see because no live coverage. But
well. The big fight for the breakaway started with the legendary attack of Grondin. Grondin said to himself, I will go in the breakaway today. And then he failed, and then he abandoned the race. So
great move.
Great move. I love that. That's dedication. That's
dude, as if you'd want to do
the
the mountain stage this weekend.
You probably just didn't want to do it. Anyway, breakaway did form a large breakaway, including Nance Peter Sauvage Desert. We've got Castro freed for Ineos Grenadiers. Ooh la la. Quickstep with Bajoli and Davenant. So that would suggest that Quickstep would not be chasing in the peloton. So that's a very notable part of the breakaway there. Amador in there, Zimmerman, Jorgensen, who crashed a few times 2 days ago. Trentin, Zengle, Craddock. We've got Burgero, Verschi, and Viermo, so 3 riders from Total Energy, and they would be the kind of team in the breakaway that would pace when the pace kind of wasn't there. Yeah. When there was no cooperation, Verschi would go to the front, Viermo would go to the front, and so forth. And then you also have Guglielmi for Arkea. So that's the full breakaway in the peloton. UnoX and DSM pacing. What's your thoughts on the situation?
When I saw it, I texted you. I was like, breakaway day, Benji. Like 100%. And I didn't even think I was literally like, they're going to get given 8 minutes, right? When I first saw that composition, because everyone correct is represented and no one's even close on GC. It's the perfect break. Took a while to form. Jorgensen said it was a big fight for it. And Zimmerman apparently got in there a bit more efficiently. Frailer, and I assume Frailer would have been given free license, but it's Castro who made it. Good to see someone like him in the break. But yeah, UnoX pacing, I like it. I really do, because it's not like yesterday's stage where it's a 9-minute watts per kilo test. Jonas did do big numbies, unsurprisingly. This finish is different. I don't think even peak Jonas can just dance away from everybody here. And Johannesson came third in the sprint yesterday, or second behind Jallis. So they have reason to realistically think they can get a good result here, even if they don't win. I like it from UnoX. The problem is the break is so big.
Yeah.
For one thing. DSM, though, why they were pacing is a complete mystery. Max Poole had an interview afterwards. They said, why were you pacing? Because Max Poole finished last of the GC group, nearly getting dropped. Oscar Olney's not in good shape. No Bardet, no Puncher, not in the break. And he said, they just said, we don't need to be scared of anybody. We'll just try something. What the fuck is that?
Well, what's the point? I don't see the point at all. Anyway, pretty funny response, to be honest. That being said, maybe there's some crazy theory of this is an easier stage on paper, so maybe we can try and attack with 3 kilometers to go from the GC group and gain some time or something like that. But nah, that did not look like realistic in my head looking at this stage beforehand. But yeah, the breakaway was a thing. We said that. Now, this breakaway would arrive at the second to last climb with a gap that is actually quite controlled. And I didn't expect it to be this controlled. That's because UnoX was the team that was doing most of the work, because DSM, I feel like when they started pacing, they were suddenly all of a sudden gone. And I feel like some of them were dropping already and some of them were still there, just not pacing anymore. But the gap was like 2.5 minutes, I think, on the second last climb. It went down and went down and went down to 1:40 on the second last climb. But there's action happening at the front. And this actually is a scenario that could actually play into the cards of UnoX there for a second, because if UnoX is putting pressure on the breakaway, then people in the breakaway will realize we can't just sit with this dead weight on our back that is not pacing with us. We need to make a difference. And that's why attacks in that group will happen, because the pressure is coming from behind. And as a consequence, the group ahead becomes smaller and less strong on paper. And then all of a sudden, it kind of looks like the peloton has a chance. But who are the riders that were the strongest on that second last climb from the break?
Yeah, Total were driving it, but not full gas. And then suddenly Bergado and Castroviejo sort of in the chaos just found themselves off the front and both just went, all right, we'll go. And Trenton had just been dropped and he was pacing. Baggioli was chasing full gas with another Total rider in his wheel. He then blew up. And then it was Zimmerman who, I think it's Jorg, is how to say it. Jorg Zimmerman, he waited, then Brit snap reached really effectively. And you're right, it's like, oh, it's only a group of 3 now, but it was very clear that not every rider, especially the isolated ones, were committing in that breakaway in the first place. And now the 3 riders on the Col des Aravis for the last 3Ks, they all start putting in. And the gap doesn't change at all for the last 3Ks. Maybe even it goes up a bit because you've got 3 strong riders. Bergado, who won a stage in Paris-Nice last year. Viamos won a stage in the Dauphiné last year from Total. Bergado, Zimmerman and Castro pulling a bit more full instead of looking at, Quick-Step got 2, Baggioli's quick. At this point, they're gone. Baggioli got flicked by Zimmerman. He used him as a bridge and then attacked across him. Then he got dropped by Nance Patez. I was kind of surprised, Benji. Dries Stevenon's already dropped back. That Baggioli just sat in no man's land for the rest of this stage.
Exactly.
Because Alaphilippe was still in the group behind. Like, he can still win the stage.
Yeah, and that's the same scenario we see with Amador from EF, but Amador seems to drop and then drop back to the group. And we see near the top of that climb, we're actually in the descent already, that Amador starts pacing with Carapaz in the wheel, but the gap is at that point 130, 140 even. So it's kind of getting more difficult with 13k to go for that to happen, and with Quick-Step having Baggioli in the middle of nowhere and not pacing in the group behind, while Alaphilippe was sitting in the wheel of Carapaz, by the way, so Baggioli could have helped in that group. Devenens seemed to have fully dropped from that point. I didn't see him getting back into actually working on Self-Evolve, but it seemed like Quick-Step had the idea on the breakaway and never tried to adapt to getting something from the peloton afterwards. Maybe it is because they didn't see it viable because the riders were done for. Who knows? That's a possibility, but I would have liked to at least see them try. But I agree that was the thing I was looking at. What are the teams going to do of dropped riders in the breakaway once that 3-man group formed? But we get towards that descent. We see Jumbo moving to the front and Freile moving to the front in the peloton. And obviously Freile is not pacing because Castro's up front. So he's trying to make sure that they stick to the front in a safe position. Jumbo's trying to do the same in same old fashion. And we're now going towards that final climb, the one that basically has 2 staircases. One stair of like 3 kilometers, 6% roughly, and then another stair of 3 kilometers, 6% is my guess. So we get on there, and Jumbo's the one pacing in the peloton. And at that point, when I saw Jumbo pacing with Benoit at the front, when I saw Walter already dropping, Van Baarle had already dropped, I was like, Benoit is not setting this up for Vingegaard to take the stage.
No, because the damage was done on the Aravis descent in the last 3Ks of that climb. They needed to put another 30 seconds into the breakaway if they wanted any chance from the GC group. The guys in front both were descending too well, and then they're not just going to lose 2 minutes automatically on that climb. And you're right, like Kenny Elissonde attacked for a bit, pacing too hard, and then he pulled off after he took the gap down 7 seconds, and then Benoit's like, well, yeah, I'm not going to isolate Jonas sooner than I need to. And UAE were the same. I don't think UAE were pacing to set up Adam Yates to win the stage. Grosjean paced for a bit, didn't really move the gap at all. The 3 in front with the pressure from behind was still working. So they didn't attack each other on that first staircase at all, from what I could see. Bergado skipped a couple of turns, I think, assessing Castro, and maybe they didn't really know who Zimmerman was too much, frankly, because like he wouldn't have raced. He's done well in La Guerra and Apennino. Castro wouldn't know who Zimmerman is.
he's not unknown. If he follows the sport, he needs to know who Zimmerman is.
Dude. Come on, I don't think... You think... Really?
Do cyclists care about the sport itself or only about their own path in it?
No, there will be some who would know it. Or is Zimmerman a top 100 rider?
No, but I feel like that Tour de l'Ain, for example, that he won.
Tour de l'Ain to that 2020. Of course, the directors should know. I don't think they would know, really.
Okay.
Tour de l'Ain 2021 stage.
Don't judge, okay?
No,
anyway.
I love it, but I'm just saying maybe Castroviejo didn't watch the replay or Bergado. he would have been there, Bergado's French race. But yeah, they get to then the last staircase. They're 100% winning this stage. So what games are they going to play? And they're pulling through a little bit. Everyone has a pain face on, and Zimmerman just attacks at the start of the steep ramp pretty hard, and he's the bigger of the three. And he wasn't lying when he bridged across on the RV easily on his own to the two. And then I honestly got it wrong. I read it wrong. I thought Castro was bluffing Benji on the climb. But
I noticed in the chat.
Yeah, I watched it back and then I realized he just couldn't respond to Zimmerman's acceleration.
Yeah.
Do you think Bergado makes a mistake here and he could have snap closed that attack?
Maybe at that point, maybe Bergado was thinking that Castro was doing an Oscar-worthy performance ahead of him. So these riders don't get into a breaker with each other that often, so they might not be able to realize from the face of the other rider whether they're actually suffering or whether they're faking. And with this specific scenario, Bergado was also behind Castro when this was happening, and then it felt like Bergado was trying to call the bluff on Castro for a bit, and then Castro tried to push a tiny bit, but didn't really get much closer because Zimmerman was really pushing. And then every time Zimmerman maybe came a bit closer to them, he pushed in another acceleration to gain a bit more of a gap. But then Bergado counters Castro.
Yeah, and near the top. And where Zimmerman attacked works because when the two are working against one, which they were working, but it's on 12%, 13%. It's not that much advantage. And they still have to close a 3-4 second gap to you. Maybe it was 6 seconds at a point, which is something they don't want to do. And that's what happens. Bergado eventually does attack across Castroviejo, who was done. And I thought, ooh, he's going to snap close this. Zimmerman's been dangling out front. Bergado's pretty punchy. He's going to sail on past him. The problem was it was now 2%. And Zimmerman said he knew Bergado was coming back. He let off his effort and he stopped going full, actually, when he saw Bergado was bridging across.
Yeah.
He knew the last section was flatter, and so he actually started to recover before even Bergado got there. But Bergado gets across to him, and I counted 19 seconds later, he opens his sprint with 250 meters to go. So Bergado, if he wanted any chance to win the stage, especially as Zimmerman's a bigger rider, and he's won... That was a Tour de l'Ain. That stage was actually a small group sprint, which he won of 6 or 5 riders. Bergado needed to wait for longer, wait in the wheel of Zimmerman and recover and maybe go with 150. But he didn't. Zimmerman gets back to his wheel and wins the stage easily. Intermarché's first World Tour win of the year, actually. They opened the season very strong in February and March, had a bit of a dry spell in April, only one win, which was a 2.1 stage win. And then May wasn't too crash hot either, but this is their best results of the year. Zimmerman winning after maybe some decent classics. Oh, no, their classics wasn't that good. Ahead of Bergado, Castroviejo third. Let's talk about them before the GC group. Benji Zimmerman, he's on the Tour de France long list, 25 years old. I think I called him for some Giro stages or a Vuelta stage or something like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
His results are pretty solid this year, like in one-day races.
Is he what Jorgensen was before Jorgensen became a GC rider as well? As in that rider that had the punch at the end of races, but mainly went into breakaways. And he might be that rider that goes in breakaways in the Tour de France, gets podiums on stages in the same way that Jorgensen last year did. I kind of feel like that is the role that Zimmerman will play in that race. By the way, did we mention that this man was the German leader for the World Championships in Wollongong? Didn't they pace for him and then he crashed?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's no good. I didn't remember that. I think he's got a bit of better sprint than Jorgensen, but he obviously won't go for GC. So yeah, and he'll get complete freedom to go for breakaways like Menkes if he goes to the tour. He doesn't have a team around him. And his results, this year in some of the smaller one-day races, top 10 in La Guelia and 4 in Drome, which is a hard race, and Jaén Paraíso Interior, the new Spanish Strada Bianca, 7th in Eschborn, which was half-decent race. And now, he wins this stage. It's a nice result for him. And Bergado also, he'll be disappointed, Bergado, I think, because they had numbers in the break. It all looked good for them. I think he thought he was going to win, actually. And the way he played it wasn't that bad. I think he just opened his sprint too early. In the GC group, Vingegaard attacked because he said in the interview afterwards that Johannesson had attacked, but we didn't see that on camera, and he just responded to it. He put everyone on a little bit of a gap except O'Connor in the wheel, and then it all came back together, and Ciccone won the sprint for 4th. No bonies. Group of 17 guys. Carlos Rodriguez actually lost 13 seconds. He's injured, or I don't know what's wrong with him. He crashed. He's got bandages on him. Landa and Lenny Martinez lost 14 seconds, and Gaudu lost 25 seconds on that finish. So not a great day for FDJ. Didn't get anyone in the breakaway, which is pointless because when it really comes down to it, when it's time to help, I think we mentioned this yesterday about defensive satellites.
Exactly.
When it comes down to time to help, don't go on the breakaway. I might need you to help if David drops. When Gaudu drops, Kevin Genietz will not be able to help him from the GC group. It will have been too hard.
Yeah.
Gaudu will be going quicker even if he's in bad shape. Same with Lenny Martinez. The only way he could help him is if he was in the breakaway, got dropped, waited, and then paced for him after recovering a little bit. Or he could just go for the stage win. Now, I don't know. There's no footage of the start of the stage, so maybe they did try and get in the breakaway, but I don't think so. And so, riders should get more. Teams should get more riders in the breakaway, I think, instead of keep guys around the GC guy. Well, okay, keep a few around, but he doesn't need 7. Anything else from this stage, Benji?
Not really. Nothing else happened, to be fair, in this stage. So
No.
that was kind of it. Well, after the stage, I switched to ZLM Tour and I was like, ooh, this is going to be a good sprint. Can't wait. Goy versus Welford versus Mark fucking Cavendish. Because he had a 3-man train, Gleb Syriza, Case Bowl, Mark Cavendish in the wheel. And 3 seconds later, he had a mechanical. So then it was just a sprint that Mareshko won. So that's the end.
Yeah, Mareshko, Alpecin beating Coy. Coy needs a real last lead out, I think. I'd like to see Coy. I think if Coy had a big... you can't put... Affini just did the Giro, Laporte's winning 2 stages of the Dauphiné, but I think, Coy is... No disrespect to the guys he's with. Let me have a look. Because, Tosh Undersander is fine. Let me have a look who is there for Jumbo-Visma. Yeah, Tosh Undersander and Rosen and Tim Van Dijk. They're fine, but they're not Affini, they're not Van Poppel, they're not that. I don't know what happened to Welsford.
I think bad positioning. I didn't see him at all in the last kilometer. So I'm gonna guess he had either something happen or a bad position because he wasn't in the sprint.
Otherwise, there's a Swiss race, the Grosser Prize, big prize of the Aargau cantons, and quite a hard, hilly one-day race around Laguerne with the Rotberg climb, which is also done in 2 staircases. Anyway, that was one. I didn't watch it. It wasn't on GCN Plus. Thibaut Naes won ahead of Mark Hirschi and Bilbao and Marco Haller in a small group sprint. That kid packed some serious punch. His sprint is really good. He won an uphill sprint in Tour of Norway. He was second in the uphill finish at Hungary. At Romandy, he was second on the first stage behind Ethan Vernon and ahead of Menton, who are actual, considered sprinters. So he's very, very punchy. And should he be in Belgium's World Championships team? Anyway, it's a nice result still. I know Hirschi's not maybe what he was in 2020, but he's still in decent shape, and Haller's fast too. So, yeah,
but I feel like I did not expect from that list Haller to be in that list.
Me either.
Yes, Naes overperforms, but Haller to be in that list, I'm like, ooh la la. That's a good performance. Because, the climbs in that race are 7 kilometers, 3.7%. When you look at that, it's kind of understandable, but the riders that are with him in that group are punchy riders. As simple as that.
Yeah.
That being said, we have not discussed tomorrow's stage. Tomorrow's stage of the Critérium du Dauphiné is a mountain stage, right? pour de savoir to quoi de faire?
It's a real mountain stage, a hard one. Actually, 150 Ks, 2 HC climbs, 1 Category 1 climb. Kind of a better finish for Vingegaard than he might see from any of the high mountain stages in the Tour de France, apart from Col de la Loze, because it's actually a genuine finish. And yeah, it starts from 260 meters and goes up to 2,600, so a lot of elevation gain. The Col de la Madeleine's the first, going up to 2,000 meters, 25 Ks at 6%, and there's some steep Ks in the last 3 Ks for the last little bit is averages 8.5%. That's nearly 2,000. That's quite difficult. Descent. Then from La Chambre in the valley for a little bit, 10-15 Ks. Then they do 2 climbs. The Col de la Confrérie, which is 12 Ks, 6.5%. And then there's another little punch up to the Col du Mollard, which, I mean, that's a soft HC climb if I've ever seen one. It's only 18 Ks, 5.7%. Then a short descent, not much recovery, false flat uphill. And then the last ramp of the Col de la Croix de Fer is really hard, actually. It's like 7 kilometers, 6.5 kilometers at 8.5%, 8%. So up to 2,000, over 2,000 meters. So, there might not be big gaps because I don't really see, when I see this stage, who on Jumbo Visma can pace that hard? You know what I mean? Like, and then other teams, if you're the director of another team, are you gonna light this stage up, chase the break for you Vingegaard to absolutely torch you?
Jeff might looking at yesterday, but that being said, on paper, Jumbo Visma wins the stage with Vingegaard if the stage goes to the peloton. If I'm any other team, I would start thinking about Breakaway.
Yeah.
Because Jumbo is the team that has such a favoritism on the stage that they should be doing all the controlling here. Because they're also in the yellow jersey. They have the favorite of the stage. No other team should help them in the peloton. Just go in the Breakaway.
I mean, you got like Chris Harper, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's on 328. He's not going to get a good GC result here. Why isn't he on 10 minutes? Because then Jumbo will chase you harder. Otherwise, James Shaw, did he do a good TT? The problem is the flat start as well. The flat start really doesn't suggest, like, if Jorgensen had just had a really bad mechanical, and was on 17 minutes, he'd be great for this. But he doesn't look in good shape after those 2 crashes. So, yeah, it looks like, oh well, everyone should get in the break, but who will get in the break?
Yeah.
Probably rouleurs, because even the good climbers who are out of GC aren't far enough out of GC, like I mentioned, like Juanpe's on 5 minutes. I mean, he should try. But then he'll probably they'll want him to be around Ciccone, so he won't get in the break.
And also, it's only 150 kilometers to control.
Yeah, short.
So Jumbo can set someone at the front of the peloton on the Col de la Madeleine, and then in the descent, they can stay at the front without losing too much energy. They'll probably have a bit more of a gap after that descent, because the break will probably take some time in that descent, I would say. But then we go through the valley to the next climb, and they might put another rider at the front anyway. So I think Jonas wins this stage.
Yeah, he should. It really suits him. And there's a 6.5 Ks, 8%. I don't know how long that is. 20 minutes, 22 minutes maybe, given the altitude. Full gas. It's not that long. The problem is he has no mountain support because Kreuzfahrt crashed out. So you're right. If I'm Jumbo, well, you've got 6 rouleurs. Use them to control the break, and Jonas can do the rest once you got him safely over the Col de Mollard. That's their finish line.
Yeah.
And then, someone will probably pace the false flat uphill section anyway.
Now, the other factor as well is the second day he attacks, everybody else, except maybe UAE, will be looking at each other. Do you feel like Yates might still believe that he can one-up Vingegaard? That's the only climber in the peloton that might still have the courage to 1v1 Vingegaard here.
I think O'Connor is hopeful he can stay on Vingegaard's wheel for a period of time. I don't think he's stupid enough to just attack him at the base of the last climb. I think that's not a Carapaz proved that's not a very good idea, and his team's not so good for setting up anything. You're right. UAE, they have Micah. They have Bjerg, who can pace shallow gradients. He actually kept the young rider's jersey by 2 seconds today, riding full gas to the line. Groschartner, Trenton's fine on this gradient, and Yates. Yates is really the only guy who I can see possibly on these longer climbs, which we haven't had yet, hanging with finger guard and maybe even trying to attack him. Yates is the only one. So, how far is he on GC, Yates?
He's not decades behind, but the time trial wasn't amazing
126.
either. He blew in the end of the time trial, if I recall correctly. So yeah, 126. That means that
tomorrow wouldn't be the day I try.
And also, the factor is also that at that point, if you're 126 behind, you're fighting for the podium, eh?
Well, I think the Sunday stage is a little bit more interesting. It's a lot more complicated for Jumbo Visma to control, because you look at the Col du Grenier there, 50, you can basically have Jonas completely on his own, 55 kilometers from the finish, about a third of the way up Col du Grenier. And then you can, I don't know where Micah is on GC, he's not decades behind either. He's on 306. Then you can actually try something a little bit different on that stage tomorrow. I don't see it. But yeah, hopefully it's a good stage and we maybe get a crazy watts per kilo performance from Jonas Vingegaard.
Yep.
Maybe he just rides it in. But yeah, he'll be the prohibitive favorite to win it. That's all I think, Benji.
Yep, that's all.
My legs hurt so much. I did downhill running 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I'm trying to practice because, if you don't practice, you have to practice it. And I was like 3Ks, 25% downhill. And I did it fine. And then 2 days later, working out my legs are on fire. I need one of those, those self-massage guns. I'm not sure if they actually work or not. I mean, they can get a free plug if they... But yeah, my legs are absolutely fried. Anyway, maybe they'll recover in time for me to challenge Jonas tomorrow. Here's hoping. See you with a recap of that tomorrow. Ciao.